Have you ever wondered why some people seem to push away the very love they secretly crave? Picture this. Someone builds walls so high around their heart that even they forget there's a door. This is how avoidant love became their curse, and understanding this pattern might just change everything about how we see relationships. The human mind plays tricks that would make a magician jealous. When someone fears getting too close, their brain starts working overtime to prove that distance is safer. Think about it like a person wearing sunglasses in a dark room, then complaining they cannot see clearly. The protection becomes the problem, but they cannot recognize it. Many people walk through life believing that needing others makes them weak. They learned early on that depending on someone meant risking disappointment, so they built a fortress around their feelings, thinking this would keep them safe. But here's the twist nobody sees coming. The very walls meant to protect them become their prison. Consider how this shows up in popular culture. Look at Joe Goldberg from the Netflix series You. While extreme in his methods, Joe represents someone who desperately wants connection but sabotages it through his need to control and maintain distance. He creates elaborate fantasies about love while simultaneously destroying any real chance at it. His avoidant patterns, mixed with obsession, show how twisted our relationship with love can become when we fear vulnerability. Or think about Chuck Bass from Gossip Girl. Chuck spent seasons pushing away Blair Waldorf because admitting he loved her felt too dangerous. Every time they got close, he would find a way to create distance, often through cruel words or destructive behavior. His brain told him that hurting her first was better than risking her hurting him later. The curse of avoidant love works like a broken compass. It points away from true north every single time. When someone starts getting close, the avoidant person feels alarm bells going off in their head. Their nervous system screams danger, even though the real danger is in running away. But they cannot see this clearly because fear has clouded their judgment. What makes this pattern so cruel is how it feeds itself. Every time someone pulls away from love, they prove to themselves that relationships do not work. They collect evidence that people always leave, that trust always gets broken, that opening up always leads to pain. But they miss the obvious truth. They are the one doing the leaving, the breaking, the causing of pain. The brain has a sneaky way of protecting us from things we think we cannot handle. It creates stories that feel so real, we never question them. Someone might think they are just being practical or realistic about relationships, when really they are running scared from their deepest need for connection. But here is where the story takes an unexpected turn, because recognizing this pattern is the first step toward breaking free from it. If you want to better understand someone's attachment style, see the link in the description to one of the most popular books on attachment theory. Now let me tell you about two people whose story will show you exactly how this curse works in real life. Sarah and David met at a coffee shop on a rainy Tuesday morning. Sarah noticed David immediately because he was reading a book while perfectly balancing a laptop, coffee, and what looked like architectural drawings. She found his focused concentration attractive, the way he seemed completely absorbed in his own world. When David looked up and caught Sarah watching him, instead of being embarrassed, she smiled and asked about the drawings. David felt something he had not experienced in years, genuine interest from someone who seemed worth knowing. They talked for 2 hours about everything from building design to favorite travel destinations. For the first time in months, David forgot to check his phone or worry about his endless to-do list. Their first few dates felt like scenes from a romantic movie. David would surprise Sarah with thoughtful gestures, like bringing her favorite pastry or remembering tiny details from their conversations. Sarah felt like she had found someone who actually listened, someone who paid attention in a way that made her feel seen and valued. But here is where the story takes its first dark turn. After 6 weeks of what felt like perfect connection, David started noticing things that bothered him. Sarah would text him good morning messages that felt too eager. She would suggest spending weekends together, which made David feel trapped. When Sarah mentioned wanting to meet his friends, David felt panic rise in his chest like cold water. His brain started whispering warnings. She wants too much, too fast. This will end badly. The confirmation bias began working its terrible magic. David started collecting evidence that Sarah was clingy, needy, demanding. When she asked about his day, he saw interrogation instead of care. When she suggested dinner plans, he felt controlled instead of loved. His mind was like a detective building a case against the very person who made him happy. But Sarah had no idea this investigation was happening. David began creating distance in ways so subtle that Sarah questioned her own perception. He would take longer to respond to texts, claiming he was busy with work. He would cancel plans at the last minute, always with reasonable excuses. When they were together, he seemed distracted, like part of him was already gone. Sarah started wondering if she had imagined their earlier connection. The cruelest part of avoidant love is how it makes the other person doubt their own reality. Sarah began analyzing every conversation, wondering what she had done wrong. She started walking on eggshells, afraid that being too enthusiastic or too interested would push David further away. She was changing herself to accommodate his fear, not realizing that his fear had nothing to do with who she was. One evening, Sarah finally asked the question that had been burning in her mind. "Are we okay? You seem different lately." David felt cornered, like a trapped animal looking for escape routes. Instead of admitting his fear, he said the words that would haunt both of them. "I think we moved too fast. Maybe we should take a break and see other people." Sarah felt like the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. Just weeks earlier, David had told her she was amazing, that meeting her felt like finding something he did not know he was looking for. Now he was saying they moved too fast, even though he had been the one suggesting most of their dates. The whiplash of going from feeling cherished to feeling rejected left Sarah questioning everything she thought she knew about reading people. But here is what Sarah could not see. David was breaking his own heart too. As he watched her face crumble, part of him wanted to take back every word. Part of him wanted to explain that his fear was not about her, but about the terrifying feeling of needing someone. But his avoidant programming was stronger than his desire for truth. He convinced himself he was doing them both a favor by ending things before they got too complicated. The aftermath revealed the true curse of avoidant love. David felt relief for exactly 3 days, then crushing loneliness set in. He had gotten what he thought he wanted: freedom, independence, no one expecting anything from him. But his apartment felt empty, his routines felt meaningless, and he found himself looking for Sarah everywhere he went. Meanwhile, Sarah was left with the impossible task of healing from rejection that made no logical sense. Months later, David would see Sarah with someone new, someone who could appreciate her morning texts and weekend plans. He would feel a stab of regret so sharp it took his breath away. He would realize that he had thrown away something real and beautiful, because his fear told him stories that were not true. But by then, it was too late to undo the damage his avoidance had caused. This is how the curse perpetuates itself, creating a trail of broken hearts and missed connections, leaving everyone involved wondering what went wrong when everything felt so right. Understanding this pattern is the first step toward breaking free from it, but knowledge alone is not enough. Change requires courage, patience, and most importantly, a willingness to feel uncomfortable while learning new ways of being in relationship. The good news is that avoidant patterns can be changed, but it takes dedication and the right approach. The first thing to understand is that avoidant behavior is not a character flaw or a sign of being broken. It is a survival strategy that once served a purpose, but now creates more problems than it solves. Think of it like wearing a winter coat in summer. It made sense in different conditions, but now it is causing overheating and discomfort. The solution is not to judge yourself for wearing the coat. but to recognize when it is time to take it off. Start by paying attention to your internal alarm system. Notice what happens in your body when someone starts getting close. Do you feel your chest tighten? Does your breathing become shallow? Do you suddenly start noticing flaws in the other person that you did not see before? These are warning signs that your avoidant programming has activated. The key is catching it early, before it takes over your decision-making process. When you notice these warning signs, pause instead of reacting immediately. This is harder than it sounds because every instinct will be telling you to create distance right away. But practice sitting with the discomfort for just a few minutes longer than usual. Tell yourself that feeling anxious about closeness does not mean the closeness is dangerous. It just means your nervous system is responding to unfamiliar territory. Challenge the stories your mind creates about the other person's behavior. When someone texts you frequently, your brain might interpret this as clingy or needy. But what if you tried seeing it as care and interest instead? When someone wants to spend time with you, instead of feeling trapped, what if you saw it as them valuing your company? This cognitive reframing takes practice, but it can completely shift your experience of relationships. Communication becomes your most powerful tool for breaking avoidant patterns. Instead of disappearing or creating distance when you feel overwhelmed, try sharing what is happening inside you. This might sound like, I am feeling a bit overwhelmed by how much I am starting to care about you, and my instinct is to pull away. Can we talk about this? This level of honesty feels terrifying at first, but it prevents the other person from blaming themselves for your fear. Learn to distinguish between your intuition and your trauma response. Sometimes avoidant people dismiss genuine red flags as their own issues, while other times they treat normal relationship development as threatening. Your intuition will give you information calmly and clearly. Your trauma response will feel urgent, panicky, and usually involves wanting to run away immediately. Learning this difference helps you make better decisions about when to stay and work through discomfort versus when to actually protect yourself. Practice staying present during moments of connection instead of planning your escape route. When someone says something kind about you, resist the urge to deflect or minimize it. When you feel warmth towards someone, notice the urge to immediately think about their flaws or how the relationship might end. These mental habits keep you from actually experiencing the good feelings that relationships can provide. Set small, manageable goals for increasing intimacy. Instead of jumping into deep emotional waters, wade in slowly. This might mean sharing one vulnerable thing per week, or allowing yourself to feel excited about seeing someone without immediately planning how to create distance afterward. Small steps build confidence and prove to your nervous system that closeness can be safe. Remember that the other person's reactions are not always about you. When someone seems hurt by your need for space, they might be dealing with their own attachment fears. When someone pursues you more after you pull away, they might be responding to their own anxiety rather than trying to control you. Understanding this can help you respond with compassion instead of defensiveness. Most importantly, be patient with yourself as you learn new patterns. Avoidant behavior developed over years or decades, so changing it will not happen overnight. Expect setbacks, moments of panic, and times when creating distance feels like the only safe option. The goal is not perfection, but gradual improvement and increasing awareness of your patterns. Find support from people who understand attachment theory and can help you recognize when your avoidant programming is taking over. This might be a therapist, a trusted friend, or even online communities focused on attachment healing. Having witnesses to your patterns can provide perspective when you are too close to the situation to see clearly. Consider how characters like Emily Cooper from Emily in Paris navigate relationships. While Emily has her own challenges, she consistently chooses vulnerability over protection. She allows herself to feel deeply for Gabriel, even when the situation is complicated and uncertain. She does not run away when things get messy, but instead stays engaged and tries to work through problems. This willingness to stay present during difficulty is something avoidant people can learn from. The ultimate goal is not to become someone who never needs space or independence. Healthy relationships require both connection and autonomy. The goal is to choose your level of closeness consciously, rather than having it dictated by fear. When you can stay close because you want to, and create space because you need it, rather than because you are scared, you have found the balance that makes lasting love possible. Breaking free from the curse of avoidant love is one of the most challenging and rewarding journeys a person can undertake. It requires facing fears that feel ancient and powerful, questioning stories that seem absolutely true, and staying present during emotions that every fiber of your being wants to escape. But on the other side of this work lies something magnificent: the ability to love and be loved without the constant interference of fear. Think back to David and Sarah's story. Imagine if David had recognized his pattern early enough to change it. Picture him sitting with his discomfort when Sarah suggested meeting his friends, instead of using it as evidence that she wanted too much. Imagine him sharing his fears with Sarah instead of building a case against her in his mind. Their story could have had a completely different ending, one where love was allowed to grow instead of being murdered by fear. The truth is that everyone deserves to experience love without the constant sabotage of their own protective mechanisms. The very qualities that make someone worth loving, their kindness, their interest, their desire for connection, should not be turned into weapons against them by someone else's fear. When we heal our avoidant patterns, we stop punishing people for caring about us. This work is not just about romantic relationships. Avoidant patterns show up in friendships, family relationships, and even our relationship with ourselves. When we learn to stay present during love instead of running from it, every area of life becomes richer and more meaningful. We stop living like emotional tourists, always keeping one foot out the door, and start living like people who belong in their own lives. The most beautiful thing about breaking the curse of avoidant love is how it ripples outward. When someone learns to receive love without panicking, they teach others that vulnerability is safe. When someone stops creating distance as soon as things get real, they show others what it looks like to stay and work through difficulties together. This is how healing spreads from one person to another, creating relationships that actually nourish instead of drain. Change is possible, but it requires a commitment to feeling your feelings instead of avoiding them, to staying when your instincts say run, and to believing that you are worthy of the very love you have been pushing away. The curse of avoidant love has kept too many people lonely in the middle of their own lives for too long. It is time to break the pattern, face the fear, and discover what happens when we finally let love in. Your heart has been waiting patiently behind all those walls, ready to connect the moment you decide that love is worth the risk. The person who will love you best might be right in front of you, waiting for you to stop running long enough to see them clearly. The choice is yours. Stay cursed by your own protection, or risk everything for the chance to be truly known and loved.
Thank you for watching. If you want to learn how to better understand avoidance, relationships, and psychological biases, then subscribe to our channel, because you deserve beautiful relationships.